On the occasion of the major poster exhibit of the work of Josef Müller-Brockmann in the Bavaria Gallery at RIT, we're very pleased to have Mr. Müller-Brockmann with us today to speak to the students present and to be able to record this interview. Mr. Müller-Brockmann was born in Switzerland and has had a long and distinguished career as a graphic designer and as a teacher and as a practitioner of graphic design, as well as a very prominent author. And his contributions to the literature of our field have been significant. So, Mr. Müller-Brockmann, I'd like to welcome you to RIT and start this interview by asking if you would share with us some information about your background. Where did you go to school? How did you start in graphic design? Where did it all begin?
First, I thank you very much, Roger, for the invitation, and that you made it possible that my posters could be exhibited here. Thank you very much. And about my education, as you probably know, I was for 2 years apprentice in the studio, but I didn't learn anything because my boss was never in the studio. And so I left the studio after 2 years without having learned anything. Really, I didn't know about typography, not about graphic drawings or illustration. And when I was for 1 year an intern student in the School for Applied Art in Zurich, and my two wonderful teachers were Ernst Keller and Alfred Willimann. I think you don't know them both, but I never forget what I could learn in 1 year from these two masters. And I was only for 1 day in the school for 1 year, a half a day in a week in the class of Ernst Keller, the afternoon in the class of Alfred Willimann. Ernst Keller was the teacher for his whole life at the School for Applied Art for Graphic Design. And what I never forget, he made marvelous city mark and marvelous poster, really masterpieces. And he had his room beside of a classroom, and we saw through a window what he did the whole day. He sit at the table and corrected the city mark, but the city mark was already used since years, but he corrected half a year the city mark to try to do it better. I never forget it. This is for the young students a wonderful example of how can function and professional ethos, professional moral. You never be satisfied what you have done. If you have an effect success, if you are accepted as a good designer, doesn't matter. Stay the whole life self-critical. And he did when the next half a year he corrected the poster. The poster was long time already disappeared from the streets for an exhibition, but he corrected the whole half a year the same poster. And so this was for me, I mean, the wonderful example for my own behavior as a graphic designer. Stay self-critical. Don't be satisfied what you have done. Don't accept an applause from outside. Be your own self-critical instance. Instance? Mm-hmm. That's right, mm-hmm. Yes. And the other name with Alfred Willimann, he was well known as a graphic designer, he was a master in typography, he was a master in photography, and first he was a wonderful human being. He never criticized work of the students, but he helped always. He helped the night, he helped Saturday, he helped Sunday. For me, he did once a poster himself, and I could give my name. He did it overnight. And and he said himself he was one of the best Swiss graphic designers we had in the past. So this was my educational background. And when I started as designer and became as a 18 years old man, and I started as a freelance with 18 years. But I didn't know, I was really a very bad designer. But I knew that I have to learn from the masters. So I studied the pioneers of the 20th century, like L. Lisitsky, like Jan Tschichold, like Rodchenko, like Walter Dextel, and so on. And I copied their works and tried to find out why. I didn't know about quality. What is quality? I only knew that these masters are well known and must be qualified. So I copied some of the samples of his masters and tried to find out what's qualified wherein. And it took long years till I was clear what quality is in typography, in form giving, in layout, in composition, and so on. And first I started as an illustrator and was well known as an illustrator. But I mistrust myself always. And I had success with my illustration. But I studied always the illustration and drawings by Matisse, by Picasso, by Leger, and so on. And finally I find out the difference, the significant difference between the drawings by Matisse and my drawings. And when I could formulate the difference, I stopped immediately and never till today, never more a drawing. And I had nothing in my hands. I didn't know about typography. I didn't know about using the photography and so on. So I started anew again to study typography and to study photography. And when I grown up slowly, and I'm still learning till today. This is my poor life.
Could you tell us a little more about Tschichold and Lisitsky? Did you meet them or know them, or was
no? They were already older than me, and Lisitsky already was died, and but I saw that Tschichold has a wonderful philosophy of life. He was a wonderful informed man about architecture, about product design, about typography, about new imaginations in book layouts and so on, in drawings, in illustration. And he had contact with writers, with architects, with city planners and so on. He was an all-around-it interested man. And I learned from him to be all around it interested in architecture, in city planning, in writing, in sculpture, in painting, in product design, in gardening, in typography, and so on. And so I began with 17 years to collect books about literature, about arts, about architecture, and so on. And Tschichold, he wrote his first book about the new typography in 1927. It was a typography so clear, full of transparency. Each letter had a significant function, and the letter itself, as a master-formed letter, had individuality. And when like the A, like the B, like the C, and all the letters are quite different. You see the A looks to the left, the B looks also to the left, the right, the C looks to the right, has like a mouth, is like a mouth, is open, has a round inside form, and so on. All the positive forms and negative inside forms are full tension. And Schickhold recognized it, he realized it. And he used the typography in the best traditional way, has enough distance, use enough distance between the letters, have enough leading space between the lines, don't use too long lines, because it's a psychological point of view. If you have long lines, you lose it, you need more energy to read the long line. Don't use too short lines, because if you have always to change the eyes and to begin, you lose this energy too. And this is a question of communication. If the typography is in a high functional, from a high functional point of view done, you can memory the text much better, the content of a text. This is a psychological point of view, and secondly also an aesthetic point of view. Because a well-done typography is aesthetic too, but first it must be functional.
You have called this objective form.
Yeah.
Could you say a little bit more about what, do you feel that your own personal definition of objectivity in relation to graphic design is similar to what you described about Schickhold?
Yes.
And,
yes. If you want to be an informative and communicative designer, you have to use the typography as a medium for communication. So if you use the typography as an experiment, and you combine and push together the letters and the words and use too few leading space, it has a certain effect. It looks new because it's different from the traditional. It looks only new, but it's time-bounded and it's not functional. It's not objectively done, because the typography has the function to inform about something. First, to inform clearly, rapidly, and misunderstandable. And this is the function of typography. So you have to use about you have to know about the good alphabets, in contrast to the bad alphabets. We have more than 1,000 bad alphabets, but we have only very rare, very few, really timeless, good formed alphabets.
What are
like
those?
Like the Caslon, the Caramon, the Baskerville, the grotesque done by Berthold, the Universe, the Haas grotesque, Helvetica, and so on, the Times as Antiqua, and so on. We have and Clarendon is a very good type of letters too. But the most of alphabets are badly done, not clear formed, not strong formed, has no power, and in forms, in the positive forms and negative forms. And it's the same with photography. You can use the photography as a medium in communication in an objective way, which means you can photograph this object. So what you see first in the photograph, the object itself, with the form, with the material, with the color. And if you use effects, which has nothing to do with the object itself, you are not objectively in. And we have more in the publicity, in the graphic design, we have more samples which tried to be sensational and spectacular than objectively information. And for myself, I want to be more and not only objective in the use of the typography and photography and the stylized forms and composition. I want to be useful for the society also in concerned the object. I didn't. I made publicity and exhibitions and advertisement for a tobacco firm, for Turmac. When I read the first time in the newspaper about the danger of cancer by smoking, I said my client immediately, it's the last time that I am working for you. And then I stopped to work because it makes no sense for me as a citizen to make propaganda for a dangerous product. And I stopped too to work for bad formed products. I stopped too to make propaganda and for political parties because I mistrust the parties. I made once propaganda, an election propaganda for a party, and I learned no people who were very, very ambitious and egoistic. First, egoistic, and secondly, social-minded. They fought first for their own egoistic profit, and secondly for the profit of a society. So I said myself, I think all the parties must be more or less, must have the same behavior, first working and trying to get their own profit, and secondly to serve the society.
So your vision of the graphic designer in a society is that he or she really has significant ethical qualities that have to be maintained, such as not doing something which would be harmful to the environment.
Yeah. I thought I have to serve the society in a democratic way. And I want to be a useful member of our society, of our democratic society. So I had about 12 articles. I stopped to work for them. Like I didn't work for nightclub, not for alcohol, not for tobacco, but produced bad-formed products, not uneducational toys for children. So I had about 12 articles. Mm-hmm. It means, of course, a reduction of your income. Mm-hmm. But this is my freedom. I admire the freedom we have. The freedom to think what we want to think. The freedom to work for what we think we should work. And you are now teachers since long years, since 20. This is the most important profession, because to influence young people, to get an ethos, a moral, a professional in their profession, and to try to do the best as a professional. Mm-hmm. And I have the highest respect for teacher. And I think the teacher of primary school is the most important position in teaching, in education. And I was always in Switzerland. I spoke for a better salary for the teacher, for the children garden and the primary school, because they have in their hand to structure the thinking of children. Mm-hmm. So that they, because the most family has not the talent or not the moral to influence the children in the best social and human being way. So
it's wonderful to hear that. Your work and others from Switzerland has had a profound influence on graphic design in the last 25 years. Much of this has been emulated by others around the world. And this comes to mind especially when we see such a wonderful exhibit of work such as yours. How do you feel about the influence of Swiss ideas, contemporary Swiss ideas in graphic design as they have been influenced other countries and other kinds of design?
You remember, I had the idea based on this, on my philosophy of design, of to be objective in my work. I had the idea to found a magazine, and I asked 3 colleagues, Richard Lose, and Hans Neuburg and Carlo Vivarelli, to collaborate. And we finally published the magazine with, in 3 languages with the title New Graphic Design. And to distribute our ideas of objectivity in the use of typography, of graphic, of drawings, of photography, of exhibitions, of all in thinking. And after 19 numbers, unfortunately the magazine disappeared because it costs too much for the publisher. But the influence, I think, was more or less worldwide. I saw, and I planned to write a book about the influence of the Swiss graphic design from the 50th, not 60th, 50th, after the last World War. And we had the idea or the thinking that the future must be better than the past. And we have to contribute to help to create a better thinking in the next future. I was penetrated with this idea. I was fascinated, and I forgot to my illustration also, because I thought illustration, a drawing, is not the reality. It's an idea. It's more an artwork than an objective information medium to informate about something. So it changed also from this point of view to photography, because photography is a medium who can inform you precisely, exactly about the existence of a form, of a product, or of a situation. And the magazine New Graphic Design showed and published samples of this kind of works worldwide. And we published works from your country, from South America, from Italy, from Europe, from Japan, and so on. And I think, and I planned to make a book about this influence, and I collected samples from Argentina, from Brazil, from Mexico, from United Nations, from South, from Europe, from Japan, but I couldn't find time to realize it.
It sounds like a wonderful project.
Yeah, yeah.
I would hope that you would come back to that and do it.
I think more important is that this kind of thinking exists in graphic design.
It's out there.
I think so.
How does it feel to you to come here to Rochester and to see so many of your posters in our gallery? You walk around, and what does it feel like to
First, I thanked you first yesterday evening, but I met you this morning. But in advance, I thanked you very much for your hospitality, and I was very, very satisfied. But seeing my posters, I saw first my mistakes, and then some good things. And I can tell you about my mistakes when we go and pass my posters.
Mm-hmm. How do you feel about the criticisms of Swiss graphic design and this objectivity you're talking about? There are obviously critics about, some are designers and some are other writers and other types, but it seems like there's always people who are taking pot shots, as we would say, at this, calling it things like, quote, Swiss sanitation, very clean, at being devoid of feeling and emotion, being maybe too uniform. How do you react to these criticisms?
I accept it because it's right. It means to be objective in your work, like I am. It means also a reduction and elimination of too much fantasy, of too much creative ideas. And this is right. And if I go through my work, I think many times it's too dry, it's too poor, because it's only informative, not more. But this is the freedom. If you want to accept the negative side too, all things has a positive side and negative side. And you have to decide if you want to stand here or you have to create your own and to make your own viewpoint. And to have a philosophy, and I think it's more important to have a philosophy in your profession and for your life, and to want first to be a useful member of a democratic society, and not first successful. Successful. You can be it with sensational ideas, with artistic ideas. This is one possibility. I am not against, but I have no more interest. It's more or less easier to do what gives you a success and public success, and this is probably can't be against, but it's in long terms it doesn't change anything. We have too much artists as graphic designer, and we have too few graphic designers with philosophy. We have too much graphic designers who want to be artists. And this is a collapse, this is a conflict. And if you separate, if you want to be an artist, be painter or sculptor. If you want to be graphic designer, you should be a technician in communication. Communicate about ideas, about institution, about products. Be informative for the profit of a customer, that he can use his freedom to buy this product or not to buy. And he can do it best on the basis of a clear, objective information. If you change the product and you enhance it, the value of a product, by using certain effects, it's a possibility, but it's not the true. I mean, if you want to be trustful and honest in front of a society, you have to be objectively informative. So I am penetrated, and I can't, and I don't want to think different.
You've also been a teacher, and I'm wondering, how do you see yourself as a teacher? Do you see yourself transmitting these same kind of values to your students in the classroom?
Yeah, yes, I I think it was a wonderful time for me, and I learned the most of what I'm able to do. And first, because as a teacher you have to know what you want to formulate, to say. So it must be clear first for yourself before you are speaking, telling something. So I learned myself. I studied every evening. I thought, you don't know anything. I'm poor thinking men, and so the evening was an educational evening for me. So I'm very thankful to my students who learned me think. And I spoke, as I spoke before, about the informative design. I spoke in the same way to my students. And I said, you shall be a useful member, a good member of a future-oriented democratic society, and decide if you want to be an artist or if you want to follow this professional ethic or not. And we had a wonderful understanding, no problem. And I said, as a graphic designer, you have to have eyes who are able to look 360 degrees around yourself. Be interested in architecture, be interested in music, in modern music, in what's happened today in all fields, in product design, in theater, in literature, in painting, in sculpture, in exhibition design, and so on. And I invited architects and writers to my class to speak about their problem. And from economic people, I wanted to invite themselves, but when the director of the school, he stopped me. And he said, no, it's stop. I had a program, and I want to invite religious people and economic people, directors of big firms in Switzerland, of Nestle and Braun Bavaria and so on, and singers, and I invited John Cage. I was the first who invited your composer, John Cage. He spoke to my students. But when the director said he has to play in front of a whole school, and I invited a famous Indian player too, and was the first. And I had a whole program too, like you. You invited me, you invited Massimo Vignelli and other designers to bring them in touch with your student too.
Music has been, I've read music has been important to you. You are a musician, I understand, and music has been important to your graphic design.
Yeah.
And I notice a dominance of music themes in the posters you've done.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit about your interest in music and how this has come into your graphic design?
My first wife who died was a violinist, has a master diploma in violin, and was a member of our orchestra. And by chance, I got the chance to make the posters. And I tried then, and I heard every concert about the classic, or the most about the classic composition and the modern Musica Viva. First, they tried to inform people about the modern movement in music, and I tried then to transform or transmit elements of music, like a motif, like transparency, like lightness, poetry, like transparency, like dynamic in the poster, by geometric elements, not by naturalistic forms. I never showed a person like Liszt or Wagner or Beethoven with an illustration, but an element of their music. I thought, like if you remember the poster for a Beethoven concert, the black form who moved around in circle forms, who tried to leave the earth, to arise, to go up, and they fall down, And I thought the life of Beethoven was so very difficult for himself. He tried to fly the earth heaviness for a lightness, for a transparency, for an how do you say? I don't know the word now.
Flight, lightness.
Yeah. In good, probably I can find the word later. But and when I tried to change the possibility to transmit musical elements or musical feelings into a game with a medium, with the help of geometric forms in a composition. And the composition should be so strictly done that you can analyze that it makes some reason the composition must be analyzable and must be in one harmony with the typography. Both together must be finally the poster form.
I think one of the fascinating aspects of the exhibit are the posters that have the grids with them, so that one can look at the poster and at the grid and back and forth. I think this is a wonderful educational aspect of the thing, and I think that through analyzing those grids, one can get a better feel of what you're talking about in relationship to the music and the themes and symbolisms in the music. Could you tell us a little more about you've written one of the definitive books about the grid, and I know the grid has been a very important tool in all of your work. Could you speak about the grid and
may I explain something now to the music posters or to this poster, for instance. I tried to find a composition in which no part of a whole composition is unused or unimportant. But I tried to make a composition so strict that you can't eliminate one point or one part of a poster. The whole must be fixed, must be strict, must be heavy and compact, and the unity. It's like here you can't see it, but I try to express the movement in the film by overlapping of a world there and film. And secondly, I try to make a strong composition from the basic of a film to the top. The whole is to the top of a Kunstgewerbemuseum Zürich, which is a square, a strict square. This part here is the fifth part of the whole height, and the left part till the border to the F, which is for fourth or fifth part of the width. So all proportions are very strictly done, and it took me a long time. I worked for each poster 1 month, and I got very few money for it. And for the Beethoven poster, I worked 2 months, every day, Saturday, Sunday, evening, 2 months. And I got 80 francs, 80 Swiss francs. But money is not the problem, but the work is a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And here it was very, very difficult. If you look at this, the wheel, the motor,
motorcycle,
it shows you streams of light. But how you can photograph it with a sharpness of a wheel here and the stream lights? These are 2 different things. If you photograph a moving wheel, all is unsharp. You get then an unsharpness here and the streamline. But to have both, we try to, and we photograph 3 weeks, from morning till the evening to find out this solution. And we constructed when a small plate with 4 wheels, moved it, the motor moved it and photographed it. It was very difficult. 3 weeks we tried to find out it, and this part is a montage together with this here, because it was too unsharp. And so only one word to the composition. No part of a composition should be unused or unimportant. So to the books, I found it's a wonderful job for your free times. Instead of holidays, you can write a book, or you can think, and you are free in thinking. So, and with special books, I worked 1 year for these books, and engaged 1 employee to make all the drawings. 1 year, really, it was very expensive for me. I mean, but I thought I have to do it, because only very few graphic designers know the right use of a grid. The most can see in the world. They can manage and handle the simple grid with 1 size of character. But already to use a grid in which 2 sizes of types are correctly and fit together with the grid, it's already more difficult. If you want to use 3 sizes of characters, so that, and to find out a grid, it takes days and days, and can take weeks and weeks. It's very difficult, and I don't know when graphic design, really I don't know in Switzerland nor in Europe, who can manage, or can who found a system in which 3 different sizes fit together with the founded grid. It's really very difficult, and I thought I have to write to make it clear once, and so I began from simple samples till the more complicated sample, and showed more or less the good samples. But not all the samples I showed are in the details correctly done, because I couldn't find them. I showed some samples were nearly right, nearly perfect, but in the detail, not perfect.
What has been the largest project you've worked on in your design office? And
I think the manual for the airport in Zurich, and the manual for the information and informative guide for the Swiss railway company. And we did it, I started it 5 years ago or 4 years ago. Now all the stations in Switzerland should finally have the same how do you say, should be done on with this design guide. The letters and the forms, the sizes, and for all the stations, and the railways themselves, the wagon should have our system of.
What's been your favorite project in your career so far?
In the past?
In the past.
My philosophy. I think the favors is what I would like to do, but I am not able to do it. It's too high. I think if I admire all my time, all my life, I admired always El Lisitsky. He was a so marvelous ingenious designer in all fields, and also in his theory, that I still have to learn from this kind of human being.
So Lisitsky is one of your heroes. Who
Sure,
are some
yeah.
others? Who are some other heroes that you've had in your life?
Rodchenko, we have a Russian, or the old Chichold, Jan Chichold, or Burkhardt, so was a very good man, and the brother Rasch in Germany were very good, and today is a Japanese designer living, and admire him too, which is Shikiura. He's a wonderful designer. He studied architecture and changed to design. He's more than a graphic designer. He's more or less ingenious. And Shizuko knows him very well. And and when what I'm admire too is what I would like to do in the next future, but I'm already sure that I am not able to do it. I have always a better view of, I see always better possibilities, but if I begin to realize them, I introduce them immediately errors, mistakes. And I tell it only because the young designers are listening, and I want to express that to be a good designer is a very, very hard thing. And and I present it me now as a self-critical man, I hope so, but I feel that I'm very self-critical. And I want to that they feel and hear it, and that they realize the function of self-critic, and it gives you the reason to admire always the heroes, not the heroes as heroes, but the good work and the philosophy behind the works. This is most important, and how they realize their philosophy in design. This is a timeless, wonderful job, and the young designers should have always this in their mind, with great samples of pioneers.
You mentioned this self-criticism idea. I think this is wonderful, wonderful suggestion for young people. Do you have any other advice for students? Any other suggestions for young people while they're in school? From your career?
Yes, to mistrust always in the future when they are well known and successful, mistrust the success, and stay self-critical without the help of critic people outside. Be your own critic and be the most severe, serious, and strict critic. So in my life, I never found a critic who was stronger than myself. And when I was in teaching, I presented the news posters, always the new posters, hanged it at the wall. I said to my students, sit around. I know very well what is well done, but I don't know the mistake. Let's find out the mistakes. And we studied together hours and hours and found out the mistakes. The finest mistakes, we made it clear. And it was a wonderful time. I never forget this wonderful time. I learned most, but the student learned that you, as their teacher, can be are not free of mistakes. You have the same troubles as the young people to do a useful job without mistakes. And I never did the work without the mistakes. And this is a message to young students.
Yeah, that's wonderful, wonderful advice. Could you tell us a little bit, thinking back, about one thing that we're very interested in hearing about would be the Ulm School of Design, and you were a teacher there.
Yeah.
Could you tell us about the school and about your experience there and why you think that was an important place?
I think it was the best school in the world at that time, because it had the best practical and theoretical program. And they had some very good teachers. It was like Maldonado, like Max Bill was teaching there, like Gujalo, like
Bonsiapi.
yeah, Bonsiapi and Ott Leicher, and some guest professors. We had Sigura was for some time there, and the students still remember the wonderful teaching of Sigura, the Japanese designer. And I thought the students were very motivated and hard working. So it was a very good time. And what they realized, and they had the same philosophy as we tried to make well known with our magazine New Graphic Design. The school tried first to find out useful and ergonomical forms in their product. And in the graphic design, they tried, the professors and the students tried to be informative, objective, and they eliminated all the sensational, not objective ideas. Sensations, optical sensation, illustrative sensation was not accepted. To be informative, to feel out and function in our society as a clear, trustful member who has the profession of communications. Be only very strong, strict, communicative for the best of a better society. And this was the mentality, the philosophy of the school. With a wonderful theoretical program, we had very famous professors like Max Benze, like Prost as a politic, and they had in the social field of history, they had good professionals.
The school ended, as I understand it, the Ulm school ended in a similar way to the Bauhaus, the political pressure.
Every good school is first a political problem, because a good school try to change the moment situation to a better situation, to a better possibility. And like I said, I try to work for a better future. So this means I want to change the status of today. The status, can you? Yeah. And so the school was first a very high political problem. A Swiss city asked me and had the interest to take over the school of Ulm when it was closed, 1968. And they asked me about my opinion. I said, no, Switzerland is not the wrong country. We are all narrow-minded in Switzerland. We are very talented in banking and thinking clear in banking, but we are not open-minded enough to accept such a school, because this school has first the trend to change what's existing for a better reality. And so it's first political, because I can't do a good work. It changes the industry and the philosophy of industry, like the Brown company in Frankfurt. They changed the thinking, the philosophy in product design fundamentally. And he changed the thinking, and he had first all the firms against them, because they don't like to sell such new products. They were uncommon, not common, and strange, and they found it too dry, they are too dry, too less of fantasy and so on. But finally, he got the high success. But Erwin Brown, after 15 or 20 years, he said, now I did what I could do, and he sold the fabric. Had a wonderful success, but he sold it. Said, I think I have to do a more important thing in my life. I want to study medicine and to help the sick people. And I know him very well, and still today he's working for a new thinking in medicine.
We're coming to the close of our time for the interview, and I just, maybe in a minute or two, could you tell us how you feel about the state of graphic design in the world today? What do you see about you?
Be frankly,
yeah.
I think it's very primitive. Because the most of them, of well-known graphic designers, try first to be well-known, with new formal and sensations, and sensation in the idea, in the forms, in the colors, in the whole composition. They want to be uncommon, or they try to find out new tricks. And in my opinion, this makes no sense in long terms, because what we need are real democratic thinking people in all professions to make impossible a new world war. We should try, and at our place, to do the best to change the materialistic thinking. I mean this egoistic thinking. It's terrible in the world. They are producing too many atom bombs, too many weapons, and the destructive the destructive production for destructive materials, weapons, and so on. This is unbelievable. Today, we should be thinking as human beings. I learned to know you, I respect you. So we met as first time, but we feel as already familiar. And this is what, it's so easy to find human beings in all the world. I traveled to Russia, and I was in Japan, I was in Mexico. First, I met human beings, and not politics, with egoistic and narrow-minded and stupid and old traditional thinking, already dated thinking. We need progressive thinking, human being thinking people.
Josef Müller-Brockmann, thank you very much for spending this time. We really appreciate your honesty and all the wonderful information you've given us today.
I thank you too very much.